So as the war in Ukraine rages on, millions of people have been forced to flee their homes. Joining us, our next guest left Ukraine with just one suitcase. Introducing to you Anastasia Vladychynska, discussing her journey. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. Now, let me ask you, the war in Ukraine has been raging for almost 2 months, and we have shown so many images of the battles, the aftermath on our broadcast. It's difficult to watch. It's so hard, so tragic. How is the fighting changing now that the battlefront has shifted to the eastern parts of your country?
Well, we are having too many sources of information for that, right? And unfortunately, I'm not the person who would know, what's going on to give that information on such a level. But I do know how it influences the people, like real people, right? Mm-hmm. Who live there. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just a lot of different information coming out of Russia, coming out of Ukraine. It's very hard to gauge what's accurate. Now, when you decided to flee, talk to us about making that decision. It must have been so difficult.
It is difficult, actually. I have to say that because I'm a client experience consultant. I was on the business trip when it all started. So my dad called me. He said, "Anastasia, you have to leave because the war has started." And I did not even believe him. I said, "Unfortunately, I have to do a workshop." So it's funny how your mind works. Nobody wants to leave because, as you probably have seen, Ukrainians are very patriotic. We love our land. So the decision is hard. Like my dad pushed me to make that decision. And but then when you have kids, like my girlfriends that I'm helping right now, they all have kids. So they basically don't have a choice. They have to get their kids into a safe place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I saw these people fleeing Ukraine, the first thing that came to mind is, where do they even start in a new country? They don't have a job, they don't have a place to stay. What has the experience been like for you?
Yeah, usually they would either have a relative somewhere in Europe. If they don't, they have friends. If they don't have friends, then they would go to a refugee camp. And that's why, when I crossed the border, I was lucky to have a friend who lives in Italy, and she called me and she was very insisting that I come and stay with her. But when you leave, once you leave the country, you see rows and rows and rows of cars with women and kids in them. And these women have, huge scared eyes because now they're in the safe place, but they have, as you said, no idea where to go. So I had it on my heart, even though I've never done this before. I've never had so many girlfriends in my whole life. Mm-hmm. But I had it on my heart that I somehow have to help those women, Mm-hmm. And these are all educated women, all my former clients and MBA students. So accommodation, that's something that they need. And I'm lucky to have friends all over. That's why I can help them.
Anastasia, let me just ask you, because as we're watching this imagery here in the States, we're saddened by it, we're angry, but we don't know what to do. Can you point us in the right direction as to where our help is most needed and what we can do to help out?
Sure. Basic needs. Ukrainian people, women mostly, because men have to stay back in Ukraine. They need accommodation, they need jobs, and they need any kind of emotional support, psychological support. So if you feel you have any of those three, right, that you could help a Ukrainian woman with directly or indirectly, then I'm sure you will find ways, because there are so many ways. There are many, charity funds. If you don't feel comfortable with a charity fund, go find somebody who is a friend of a friend, who is a real Ukrainian refugee, because now, as you've said, it's almost like it's become prestigious to be a Ukrainian refugee, which is not at all how it looks.
Well, thank you so much, Anastasia, for joining us this morning, getting the word out. And if you're watching this and your heart feels compelled, please help out. The need is so great out there. Thank you. Have a good day, Anastasia.
Thank you, Ashley.
Great to get that personal account there. Yeah, really touching. Coming up, the Capitol